The most important thing that we can share with you about your child's milestones is something that your pediatrician or the CDC may never tell you. It is that the order in which your child hits these milestones is far more important than the speed at which they hit the milestones. It's not a race. As parents, sometimes it's hard to know what is common with kids versus what is normal. This is a big thing we are always educating parents on in our office when it comes to their kids. It is so hard to know if your child is on track or behind, especially if you are a new or a first-time parent. So we want to talk about that first. We want to go into what is normal child development. So there are two main phases to baby development, and when we really break it down and simplify it into a couple steps. Phase 1 is where baby has to eat, sleep, poop, and move. Babies are pretty simple in this regard. Their needs are basically to bring nutrients in effectively and with ease, digest them properly, remove their toxins, and sleep for recovery. And do a little bit of head movement, gain some head control, and be able to move accordingly. After this phase 1, we get into phase 2, which is 4 to 8 months of age, where we get a little bit more head control. They start sitting up, getting ready to eat solid foods, getting their core stronger to get their butt up in the air, start to crawl and pull to stand, and eventually learn to walk. The key with all of this is with them hitting those basic milestones in the beginning with ease, that sets them up for later success with the more complex milestones, because it's a lot easier to eat than it is to walk in a baby's developmental brain. First, we want to see an easy latch, easy digestion, and very calm with sleep. So if we're seeing issues with this early on, that is a red flag and warning signals innately to mom and her gut that something's off. If your baby's not eating well, you're going to be stressed. If your baby's not pooping well, you're going to be stressed. And if your baby's not sleeping well, you're definitely not sleeping as well. So oftentimes we get to phase 2, and that really highlights that if anything in phase 1 was off or not as easy for baby to do, there were some struggles, and that means that's going to reflect in phase 2 with the more complex tasks and milestones. So when we look at why are they not achieving these first couple simple milestones with ease or even struggling with them, where does it all start? So we look back at the birth process, especially here at Pinnacle Chiropractic. We are always asking, even if the child is 10 years old, we're asking about how their birth experience was. How did mom perceive that birth experience? Was there a lot of interventions? How were they positioned in utero? Did labor stall? Did mom need Pitocin or an epidural? Did they have some form of dystocia where they got stuck in the birth canal, which created stress for mom? This can affect those primary milestones by creating more tension in the body, so the body is not able to do what it needs to do in the beginning. And so if baby's stuck a little, they can't latch fully on one side versus the other, they're not pooping well, they're not sleeping well, they're not comfortable, they're very colicky. That is a baby that's stuck in fight or flight. And that baby that's stuck in fight or flight, that can also lead to issues later on with eye contact, arching, all these different red flags that can make their crawling delayed or even skipped, their walking could be late. All these different things can be affected by those basic early phase 1 milestones. So they don't grow out of it, which is most commonly what you'll hear from your pediatrician. Oh, you know what, like if they're not pooping, just give them Miralax or something like that, and they're just gonna have to grow out of it. We don't really have another solution for that. But that's not the case. They won't grow out of it, they'll just grow into more complex issues later on. So we see it over and over again. Babies that aren't accomplishing eat, sleep, poop, and move a little bit, and breathe and do all this with ease, then that's going to affect their more complex milestones later on. And when those phase 2 milestones are affected, that's going to affect things that are more complex, like speech, their ability to progress in school really well, ADHD, all these different issues that are more older kid milestones that won't get diagnosed until they are 7, 8, that old. So these are definitely some things that you want to be on the lookout as a parent, especially if you're a new parent. Make sure that your baby is doing all these things really well and then they're going to be doing the later, more complex things well later on. So if this resonates with you, if you had a very traumatic birth experience and your baby is struggling with one of these things, please bring them into a pediatric trained, neurologically focused chiropractor that does neurological nervous system scans. And then we're going to take a deeper look into where your child is holding that tension and inflammation in their body and how to help release it, and help them adapt and thrive with those pediatric milestones so that they are not struggling functionally later on.